future where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
The man who is giving me a chance at a new start in life. The guy who hired me. A guy who believed in me when I had no experience. A guy who was allowing me to start a new career. A guy who had been pretty laid back up until this point fixes me with a steely gaze as he tells me about the logger. Now, for those not in broadcasting, the logger, it's sort of like the logger to a broadcaster is what a body cam is to a cop. It's a body cam for radio people. The logger is the accountability machine, and it means that you cannot tell a lie. You probably like big butts and have something akin to George Washington because you are incapable of telling a lie when the logger is involved. He looks at me as he's training me for my first day on the air. And he tells me the moment you're done talking on the radio, the moment you are done, you switch the microphone off. And you make sure it's switched off. Because say you make a mistake. You go to talk and you make a mistake. You go to talk on the air and you eat it. You just eat the break, as we say in the business. You just eat it. It's the broadcasting equivalent of an especially nasty and messy train wreck. You make sure that microphone is off because you're going to scream, fudge. Not really fudge, though. The other thing that fudge tends to be a euphemism for. You're going to scream fudge at the top of your mother fudging lungs. And when you do that, the mic had better be off. See, I got that job in radio after being in a band. And maybe that's why he was being so strict and firm with me. I'm sure he read a similar riot act to everybody else that he trained to be on the air. But I'm pretty sure the guy who hired me, who gave me my shot, had seen me play before. Like, I think he'd seen my band, which meant he heard me scream at the top of my lungs, "Let's FS up, you mother effers," before screaming and yelling and jumping up and down for an hour straight. So maybe that's why he was stressed about the logger. But he went on to say, you see, if that mic is not off and you screw up on the air and you launch an F-bomb over the airwaves of the fourth largest city in America, Houston, which was the first city I was on the radio in, people are going to hear it. There's no two ways about it. And someone will almost definitely call or write to us and tell us that they heard it, when they heard it. And that means we're going to have to come to you and ask if you did it. And if you did do it, you own it. There's no lying. There's no getting around it because of the logger. The logger records everything. And if you lie about dropping an F-bomb on the air, the evidence for or against you will be there in cold, hard, irrefutable, undisputable digital audio. There's no getting around the logger. So, not just in broadcasting, but for you, me, all of us, there is now a level of accountability that we've learned to live with in the digital age. The idea of spin, omission, glossing over the facts, pretending something didn't happen, is not nearly as effective as it used to be when we were an analog bunch of folks. In 2017, and especially in the world of media, there's a never-ending tally of what you do, what you say, what you wore, whether or not you scratch yourself in an unseemly manner in public. There's a record of that. Life in 2017, whether we like it or not, but especially for people in broadcasting and people in any kind of public situation, it's basically like you're being followed at all times by a court stenographer, which means you own what you say, or someone is going to use it to own you. Does that make sense? In the digital age, you own what you say, or someone is going to use it to own you. Kind of amazing to me that a man who in the past has been as adept at the manipulation of the media as our president doesn't seem to realize this.
Radio 104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So I'm like 23 years old. I'm starting a new career. I'm transitioning from being a band that had been played on the radio to being on the radio and playing other people's records. And on my first day of training, the man that hired me read me what was ostensibly the riot act about the logger. The logger is a constantly running digital record of everything that you do, say, and play on the air. And if you inadvertently launch an F-bomb over the airwaves of the fourth largest city in America, Houston, where I started out, he's like, not only will people hear it, but they're going to call us. And when they do, we're going to have to go back and check the logger. And if you did it, you own it, because, well, everything you said is there in cold, hard, irrefutable digital audio. And that's the way it is in 2017, especially if you're a public person or in the world of media. I mean, really, for all of us, there's cameras everywhere recording everything at all times. There's a never ending tally of what you do, what you wore, whether or not you scratch yourself in an unseemly manner in public, whether or not you're a nose picker. Like I said, it's like being followed at all times by a court stenographer. And like I said, in 2017, you own what you say, or someone is going to use it to own you. Which is why it's kind of amazing to me that a man who has been as adept in the past as our president at the manipulation of the media doesn't seem to realize this. Donald Trump did something really interesting the other day in Phoenix, where he had a campaign rally. I guess a campaign for his reelection in 2020. Anyways, he blamed the media for misquoting him, and then he misquoted himself. Donald Trump has had a rough go of it for the last week. In the wake of Charlottesville, he's been taking bipartisan heat for being weak on white supremacy, the KKK, hate groups in general. And he was weak on white supremacy and the KKK whilst and at the same time, in a distinctly unsubtle way, trying to cozy up to white supremacist voting bases. As we've said on the show, not all Trump voters are white supremacists, but also white supremacists are probably Trump voters. And it was a really ham-fisted attempt to retain their support during this whole thing with that whole on many sides. It wasn't an especially swift political move. Let's forget the egregious moral error, but it wasn't a smart move for a politician. In the aftermath of murder and domestic terrorism committed by one of those white supremacist types, it wasn't a good move to be soft on that sort of thing. And people let him know it. People from all over the world let him know it. Forget the fact that Republicans and Democrats united to let him know it here in America. People like Angela Merkel were like, hey, here's the thing about Nazis. We have up close and personal experience with them here in Germany. And yeah, you want to be firm on that one. So it'd been a rough week for the Donald. So Donald did what the Donald does when the Donald is down. The Donald got into a large room full of people who agreed with him. Now, I never understand why politicians do this. It's not the most productive or challenging situation to be put into a room full of people that agree with you. You're not reaching anyone new. You are essentially preaching to a choir of believers and not converting anyone else. But when your ego is bruised because the single biggest act of unity that has happened in the last 100 days or so is people putting aside their political differences to remind you that racism is wrong and what you just did in no uncertain terms sucked something that I can't name by name on the radio. Suffice to say that it is dangly, hairy, and unpleasant. When people bridge gaps of politics, gender, race, and religion to come together as one and tell you that in no uncertain terms you suck, if you're the thin-skinned type that our president has admitted to being, you need a little pick-me-up, I suppose. So what better pick-me-up than breathing in the mindless adulation of your hardcore fan base? Gives Donald strength. We're making America great again. So Donald Trump went and hung out with some of his staunchest Zoni supporters in Phoenix, Arizona. And he attempted to rewrite some extraordinarily recent history. President Donald J., this past Tuesday just gone by, blamed the media for misrepresenting and misreporting his statements about what happened in Charlottesville. He was apparently misreported when it came to his comments on the white supremacist murder, the deadly violence that took place in Charlottesville. But what was weird was he did that thing. I think in legal terms they call it lying by omission. Donald Trump omitted that in his first response. He'd said many sides are responsible for this violence. On many sides might well be on his tombstone. And he omitted that he'd said on many sides in defense of his ownership of the moral high ground. At this rally, he painted himself as a kind of white knight of equality, saying, I hit him with the neo-Nazi. I hit him with everything. KKK, we have KKK. I got them all, meaning I covered, and by the way, that's a direct quote. I covered all the hate groups. I admonished them all. What more do you want from me? And this was met with huge cheers by dear leaders faithful. But it's so far divorced from any kind of reality that it's a bit shocking.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950. Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So if you're just joining us, we started the show by talking about, it's a little broadcasting 101, the logger. If you say something offensive, if you curse on the air, don't try and cover it up. It's going to be there. The logger records all. The logger will have exactly what you said, and when you said it, available for your superiors to go over. That's the world that we live in digital audio. It's a world of accountability because of cold, hard recordings of what it is you've said and done. And that's me, a guy making fart jokes on the radio. That's a level of accountability I got to live with. So it was a little surprising to me that Donald Trump on Tuesday, during his thunderous speech in Phoenix, Arizona, his reinvigoration of his base, his campaign stop for the 2020 election, because that's a productive use of one's time. It was weird how he attempted to rewrite some unbelievably recent history that was fresh in all of our memories. Trump essentially lied by omission. Trump omitted that in his first response to the violence in Charlottesville, he said that the blame lay on many sides, No, a Nazi killed someone. The blame is pretty clear. The stance on Nazis and the KKK and white supremacy and hate in general is pretty clear. That whole on many sides thing upset the apple cart. Like I said, I think it'll wind up on his tombstone. That was the turning point. That was the line. There was Donald Trump crossing it, and there were people on the left, right, joining together saying, we're not crossing that line with you, which I think is a good thing. But it was amazing how in Phoenix, Arizona, he just sort of willfully ignored the reality of what had happened. He said, I hit him with a neo-Nazi. I hit him with everything. KKK, we have KKK. I got them all. Then, like we said, this was met by huge cheers, courtesy of Dear Leaders Faithful. But it's so kind of far removed from any sort of reality that it had the rest of the world, Republicans, Democrats, Trump supporters, anti-Trumpers, scratching their heads going, what planet is this happening on? There was so much more, but there are limited numbers of hours in the day, and we got to kind of get to it. There was so much more that happened in Phoenix that bears mentioning. But to me, the most memorable part of the entire thing, the one that said, wow, this is literally nothing to do with reality. The most memorable part of the entire thing was that we watched Trump say that CNN is refusing to carry his speech on CNN. I actually looked down and checked to see what channel I was on when he said CNN was refusing to carry the speech. I was like, no, it's CNN. Okay, well, all right then. And you know what really struck me as odd? Again, this thing where you get into a room full of people that agree with you that Trump did. And many politicians do on many sides. This is what politicians do. They get into a room full of people that agree with me and they have a bunch of people clap and congratulate them. And it always strikes me as counterproductive and strange because it's not getting you or your causes or the legislation you're trying to get passed or the executive orders or whatever it is you want to push through. It's not getting you or your political stance new votes or new support. You're wasting time preaching to a choir. And in Donald Trump's case, preaching to a choir that has shrunk recently. And those people that are on the fence, you're alienating them. To me, it's a dumb move. So it's weird. It's weird, right? It's not just me. It's weird. I ask this because I'm watching it going, this is really strange. And look, I get a hard time from listeners who say I'm not anti-Trump enough. I get a hard time from listeners who say I'm not pro-Trump enough. I don't fall into any political party. I take life as it comes. I look at an individual. I don't believe in party politics. And a lot of people give me a hard time for being a bit of an optimist where Donald Trump is concerned. An optimist in that I think some good things might come out of his presidency. And when they do happen, we should be happy about them and enjoy them. I get grief. A lot of people, I think I said something like that a little while ago. And in the wake of Charlottesville, somebody called me a neo-Nazi sympathizer, which, again, so far divorced from reality that it doesn't even bear mentioning. But that's the world we live in. In a world where you must pick a side or you're the enemy, I hang out in this lonely position of neutral common sense, I suppose. So I get grief from a lot of people who say I don't give Donald Trump a hard enough time and people that say I give him too many breaks. But watching what was going on in Phoenix, it was just strange to me. I call him like I see him. And if you're a Trump fan and this offends you in some way, shape, or form, all I can tell you is that I watched it and I went, what the hell is going on? He's saying CNN won't carry a speech that we're watching on CNN in real time. He's omitting large chunks of extraordinarily recent history, expecting us to go with it. And that just makes no sense. He said his remarks post Charlottesville were, and I quote, perfect, without fault. There could have been no better choice of words than his choice of words. He said it was perfect. So to me, it's just weird. It just looked weird. It looked odd. It looked like a man who didn't know where he was. Or a man who was convinced he was somewhere else. Anyways, I think what puzzled me the most was that standard of truth that we live with in an age where everything is recorded and broadcasted and available on everyone's cell phone. That standard of truth, that standard of, if you say it, we're going to know you said it, so just fess up. That's a standard that I was held to as a rookie broadcaster. As a guy who was looking to get on the air on a rock station so I could make 20-second fart jokes between Metallica and Red Hot Chili Peppers songs, that's the standard I was held to. So it just seems extra weird that that's not the standard of the president of these United States of America. It's not the standard that he has to live up to. It's really strange to me that the standard of truth and accountability that he set for himself, well, it's much, much lower. So, I'm puzzled. All right, Funkhauser. You're how old now, Funkhauser? 35, 36?
36. Mm-hmm. Nice round numbers there.
Nice, right. It's two 18-year-olds. or whatever sort of weird justification you want to give it. It's that time of year again where we talk about how young today's college freshmen are, and of course how old that makes all of us. Those of us that are beating the crap out of our 30s the way Funkhauser and I are.
Beating the crap out of him, yes.
Yeah.
And losing.
We're going to talk.
Terribly.
We're going to talk a little later on in the show about this year's college freshmen and the world they live in and how it's so different to the one that you and I grew up in. It's crazy. Give me an O, give me an L, give me a... Wait a second. They don't know a world without smartphones? They've only ever known Justin Timberlake as a solo artist? Go figure. We'll get to all of that after we get to the events of today in our segment, My Witness News. What up, Funkhauser?
Well, the creators of Stranger Things confirmed that the show will return for season 3. Have you seen
it'll
season
keep coming back
2 or 1?
I've seen season 1 and it was great. It was really great. Loved it. And I don't wait, is season 2 out yet? I have a hard time keeping track of these things. Yeah, so like before season 2 is even out, they know they're going to get a third season. And you know what? It's going to keep coming back until they completely run out of 80s movies to rip off of. You know, there's something very interesting I heard about Stranger Things and how it was built. Because Netflix is this platform that people watch everything on. Like everybody loves Netflix, and Stranger Things is on Netflix. So I heard, and I don't know how much truth there is to it, but it would make perfect sense that Stranger Things was kind of built around data aggregation in terms of what people wanted to watch on Netflix. Like they had a real run on people binging the X-Files. There were a bunch of 80s movies, things with 80s pop culture references in them. People wanted to see folks like Matthew Modine again. People wanted to see people like Winona Ryder, actors and actresses that we'd grown up watching. And they put all this information in a blender and built a show around it. They're like, hey, we want to do sort of like an 80s X-Files-y thing that's sort of horror, but also has a bunch of pop culture references in it. And that's how Stranger Things came about. And people love all those elements of it. It's an interesting way of reverse engineering entertainment. It's kind of cool, kind of interesting. And, well, I mean, if it didn't work, if it was a soulless piece of garbage, it would have been a giant failure. But I couldn't put it down when the first season came out, and I can't wait for the second one. And now I guess I can't wait for the third one. It's good stuff.
Give them all the money. There's a new reality show on the way about women seeking sperm donors.
No kidding. Say yes to the mess. At the end of each episode, instead of roses, the women give out specimen cups. I can't wait.
Aw, me neither. What channel will it be on?
You know, but I
can't say it on the radio. Must blank TV.
I wonder about stuff like this because, you know, like if you are I'll never forget. One of the most entertaining nights of my life. I was in a casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I'm not like a gambler that really kind of like gets a lot out of gambling. When I win, great, but I'm not a problem gambler. Like if I go away and I have X amount of dollars to lose, I lose X amount of dollars and then I stop gambling. Like I might lose X amount of dollars. Well, I might come out ahead. That's happened once or twice. It's not a frequent occurrence, but I might come out ahead. But if I lose X amount of dollars in the first 10 minutes, or if it takes me 2 days to lose it, after that, I stop. I set myself a budget and go, all right, that was nice. I guess I'll just, now that I've lost all my gambling money, hang out by the pool or whatever the hell it is I've decided that I'm going to do. Or at least what I decided I would do back then when I actually took vacations. But that's neither here nor there. One of the most entertaining nights of my life was a time where I was doing well enough to stay in the game playing roulette at a casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And I was across the roulette table from a lesbian cop. And one of the things I love so much about gambling, and when things are going well, you kind of like have this weird camaraderie that only exists for the time that you're at the table together. It's absolutely illogical. Someone starts hitting, you start following them around their table, playing their numbers. They do the same to you. And oftentimes you have very, very interesting conversations. But I'm across the table from this lesbian cop who is hitting and hitting and hitting and doing really, really well. And I start following her around the table, and I hit occasionally. So I managed to stay alive. And I'm glad I managed to stay alive from a gambling perspective because it allowed me to have this conversation with this woman. And every time she hit, she was like, do you know how much sperm I can buy with my winnings? I was like, okay. And she's like, this is pre-gay marriage, but she was like,
That's what she was. Everyone's in it for something.
Everyone's in it for something. And she was like, I'm going to buy so much sperm with this. Like, me and my girl are going to go get a great dinner, and then we're going to go buy sperm. Because we want to have a kid. We want to be parents. And we want one of us to be the biological mother. I thought it was fascinating. And I was like, is that really expensive? And she's like, yeah, it really is. And then there's the whole process of being fertilized and all the above. So all this money that I'm winning now is going directly into our account for our kid. And I wish that's the other thing. You kind of don't tend to stay in touch with these people. You don't trade cell phone numbers or email addresses. But I really wish I could have seen how that played out, because I was rooting for her to hit every time. Because by the end of the conversation, I was like, man, there will be no better parents on the face of the planet than you to this kid that you're about to have. And it made me think, it's so difficult for her to have a kid. And they put so many barriers between parenthood and the people who would make excellent parents, whether it's adoption or things like this. And it makes me question a lot. And I'm imagining that part of this show is that you get the man juice for free.
More AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior.
All right, Funkhauser.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about the college freshmen of today. And what a different world. Like, ostensibly, they're in that transitional phase between childhood and adulthood. And we're going to talk a little bit about them and the world they grew up in and how different it is to the world that we grew up in. All right, what else is going on in the world? Let's do some news before we get to that.
A group of Cleveland Browns players are getting heat for kneeling during the national anthem before their game on Monday night.
They pulled a Kaepernick, took a knee. It's the first time Browns players have been in the news for being in a position other than laying flat on their backs while another team tramples all over them. Hey, it's a free country. It's just not.
Oh, I haven't heard that in a long time. It's a free country.
It's a free country. It is not, as it turns out, a consequence-free country. So there you go. And you know what? Can open worms everywhere. There's multiple shows worth of material about this one. Did you see George Foreman came out? No, not came out, but there was an interview a little while ago that he did where people asked him, what do you think of folks like Kaepernick taking a knee? And he in no way, shape, or form understood it. He came from real hardship. He was a black man that grew up in the 60s when being a black man was not easy. He grew up unbelievably poor. He overcame unbelievable odds to put together the life that he put together. And to him, someone who definitely experienced the slings and arrows of the lack of equality that was part and parcel of society in the 60s, to him, being allowed to wear the stars and stripes and hear his national anthem played when he represented America in the Olympics was such a tremendous source of pride that it is absolutely unrelatable to him that anyone would not want to take part in that. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I guess it's all how people interpret it. But George Foreman interpreted it as, hey, man, I worked hard to get to this point, and it means a lot that a black man is representing his country in the Olympics. This is a great moment for me. This is a great moment for equality, and this is a great moment for Americans. And it's just interesting how the Colin Kaepernicks of the world have a completely different view of the situation. It's fascinating. And a reminder to me that there are many perspectives.
America is
there.
big.
One is not necessarily more valid than the other. You know, it's like I said, there's multiple shows on this, and we'll get to it later. Right now, though, what else is going on?
A live gecko was found inside a man's ear. A live gecko.
Well, on the bright side, he saved 15% on his car insurance.
I saw that one coming. That's why I slow
saw
pitched
it coming,
it.
But it was you saw it coming, but it was still funny to you, right?
Yeah. It's like the first page of Mad Libs. I get it. A Baskin-Robbins survey found that people who get ice cream in a cone are optimists, whereas people who get it in a cup are realists.
Oh, no kidding. Wow. Well, how do you get your ice cream, Funkhauser? Cup or cone?
I'm always cup. Always cup.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to eat the thing I'm holding. Come on.
So you're... But, I mean, they give you that little, paper sleeve so your filthy, dirty hands don't actually touch it.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I can't live by those standards. I don't live by sometimes. Always a cup. 2 scoops, usually black cherry and pistachio nut. Mm-hmm.
That's a revolting combination.
You got it.
Black cherry and pistachio nut.
Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with some green and pink.
I am pistachio nut interested in that.
You should try it.
See, I don't think it's so simple.
What about you? Hand or cup or cone?
It depends. If it's one of those delicious sugar cones, then I want the cone. Like that. That's. If I'm going to McDonald's or something, yeah, I'm gonna have to cone it because they don't even offer the cup. Well, if it's the sugar cone, if it's the crunchy, delicious sugar cone, I am all about it. Or if it's a waffle cone, but if it's one of those sort of like 2 steps away from packing peanut styrofoam cones that you get when you go to like the beach, and those don't interest me. They don't taste good. They add nothing to the ice cream eating experience. And if it's a choice between that cone and a cup, I will take the cup. But quite often, what I do, being I guess if you get your ice cream in a cone, you're an optimist, and if you get your ice cream in a cup, you're a realist. Being the pragmatist that I am, I often get a cone and then I have a cup with it for 2 reasons. One, you can turn the cone upside down and put it in the cup when it gets unwieldy, because I hate sticky fingers. Man, do I hate sticky fingers. They just drive me freaking bananas. The idea of having sticky fingers on a hot day when you're at the beach, so unbelievably unpleasant to me.
And you know how coordinated I am, too, with the way I hold things.
Yeah.
A cone is going on
of stuff
on my pants.
Yeah. So, for me, I like to have a cup at the ready for the following reason. One, you don't have to deal with a mess. Two, I don't know if you've ever experienced the wonderful that is this, but if you, when you get to the end of your ice cream cone experience, if you take the cone and the melty ice cream and you put them in that cup and you sort of use a spoon to crunch it all together, oh man, is that good. Oh, gosh. So, I don't know. I think that's an oversimplification of things. Baskin-Robbins finds that people who get ice cream in a cone are optimists, people who get it in a cup are realists, and people who get ice cream in a 5-gallon tub are Rob Kardashian. Go on.
McDonald's will be closing 169 restaurants in India. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, look, there's far smarter people than me that are running McDonald's global. And for that reason, I'm a little surprised this didn't occur to him. But if McDonald's are going to be closing 169 restaurants in India, they might want to bear in mind, for future reference, if you're a hamburger restaurant, maybe don't open up in a country where cows are sacred.
This feels
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
Oh, well, all right, so we'll roll through how much time do we have, Funkhazer?
13
We're going
minutes.
to roll through what remains of the news, and then we'll talk about what today's college freshman is like. Kids are going back to school, and it's that time of year where we recognize that the world a college freshman grew up in is very different to the one that we grew up in. It's fascinating stuff, and we'll do news. We'll get to that. But I got an email from Jerry, who appears to listen in Florida, probably on Real Radio 104.1 in Orlando. How do you think Donald Trump will be different now he doesn't have Bannon? Okay. Well, we were talking about this earlier. Donald Trump has been seen by a lot of people for a long time as a master manipulator of the media. I'm not so sure it was him. Bannon's a smart dude, and he's not on Team Trump anymore. See, Trump, after his speech in Phoenix, was again bashed by the left and the right. It was him playing to his base, trying to stir up support, and bipartisan folks weren't having it. And in the past, like I said, Donald Trump has gotten a lot of credit for being an effective manipulator of the media, and now I'm not so sure. You see, Bannon's only been gone for a couple of days, and well, it just seems to be gas on the dumpster fire. Look, this is how Trump, without Bannon, manages to be an effective president. This is how he salvages what's left and maybe achieves something during his time in office. And by the way, everyone says Bannon got fired. That's a company line. But everyone is now saying that Bannon wanted to be out. And it's amazing. It's really amazing what Bannon has achieved in his exit from the White House, because he was public enema number one in Washington. He was seen as the slimy henchman, the nasty guy pulling all the strings. And
Did you say public enemy or public enema?
No, I said public enema.
Oh, okay.
He was seen as public enema number one. And he had this really sort of negatively regarded public persona, not only in Washington, but to America at large. And since he left the White House, overnight, he went from, like we said, public enema number one to being the man with a plan. The first rat to strategically bail from the sinking ship. Bannon is now the guy who figured out a way to get fired so he wouldn't look like a quitter, and now all eyes are on him. There was this plan. Roger Ailes, Bannon, and Trump, this was the rumor, and I'm guessing there was a significant amount of truth to this, we're going to get together and start Trump TV. Now, Bannon's beating him to the punch. He's starting a television network that is to the right of Fox, ostensibly taking up the space that Donald Trump planned to occupy. And it's a direct shot over the Donald's bows. I mean, forget the fact that he said the Trump presidency we fought for is over. He's now Trump's direct competitor in the world of media. So it's on, like Donkey Kong now, between Bannon and the Donald. Bannon, his chief strategist, a guy who had that magical ability where he knew which ass to kick and which to kiss, and never got the two confused, is no longer someone Trump can lean on. This is the sort of thing Bannon was responsible for when it came to the manipulation of the media and public opinion. Funkhauser, we've done this before. If I say to you, Ted Cruz, what do you think?
Oh, Lion Ted.
If I say to you, Hillary Clinton, what do you think?
Crooked Hillary.
If I say to you, Marco Rubio, what do you think?
Marco Rubio? I forget. Little Marco? Oh, because that's
exactly
a new.
it.
There's a new little guy in town, George Stephanopoulos. He called him Little George. So there's a new little in town. Yes.
Well, it's just I mean, he called George Stephanopoulos Little George.
Yeah.
Like, and he just with Bannon being gone for a week, he's already run out of ideas. That thing where you affix a negative adjective to someone's name. Funkhauser, do you know anything for certain that Ted Cruz has lied about?
No.
Trump got on TV and said over and over again, Lion Ted, Lion Ted, Lion Ted, Lion Ted. And it got fixed in the minds of America to where, someone like Funkhauser, who does Cruz's relationship with the truth, just knows him as Lion Ted. And that's, you don't necessarily think he's a liar, but that's the first thing you think when you think Ted Cruz. And that was all Bannon's doing. Bannon taught Trump how to do that. Bannon gave him the negative adjectives to put in front of someone else's name to discredit them. And look, Bannon's been gone a week. He couldn't come up with a better word than little to describe George Stephanopoulos. You already used that on Marco Rubio. You got to come up with a new one. Diminutive George. I don't know. Or you could call him Curious George. I'm not sure, but there's a million other things that you could have gone with other than little. And that, to me, speaks volumes about the fact that Bannon, his former chief strategist, a guy who, like I said, knew which ass to kick and which to kiss, and never got the two confused, is no longer somebody Trump can lean on. It's only been a few days, and boy, is it showing. And he says that Trump's presidency, the one that they fought for, is over. And he might be right. So that's the end result. Trump went from having Bannon as his closest ally in all things presidential to the buttoned-up General Kelly, the White House chief of staff, who has demonstrated numerous times that he's having none of it. He's trying to bring some dignity and decorum back to the White House, and he's at direct odds with Trump. And now he's got this guy that doesn't take guff the way Bannon did, and doesn't know how to work with him, and doesn't care to work with him the way Bannon did. So it's going to be very, very different moving forward for Trump, unless he gets a surrogate Bannon, unless he finds someone that can guide him the way Bannon did. Now, I'm not a Bannon fan. One thing I liked about Bannon, though, is, well, he was all about staying home. He wasn't a warmonger. He was all about staying in America and looking after number one. Bannon's been gone for just a couple days, and Trump's already talking about sending troops to Afghanistan. Completely contrary to a campaign promise he made. So it's interesting. Now, if you ask me, the only hope for a Trump presidency, the only real positive outcome for a Donald Trump presidency, for all of us, bearing in mind that I'm not a Trump fan, I just am a fan of Americans in America and would like to see good things happen for as many of us as possible. What Trump needs to do, now that he doesn't have Bannon to guide him through the choppy waters of public opinion and the media, Trump needs to put the freaking phone down. Get off Twitter. Stop having campaign rallies for a 2020 election. Sit down, shut up, and focus on the things that he's Trump and he can do. Something he has a vague understanding of. Focus on jobs, employment, the economy. Shut his yap, stop making an idiot of himself on the world stage, and make, at the very least, the economy great again. Like I said, that's what he should do, but he probably won't. So there's that. But yeah, it will be very different without Bannon moving forward, and we've seen that almost immediately, if not sooner. All right, Funkhauser, how much time do we have left? We kind of took a bit
like 4 or 5 minutes.
4 or 5 minutes. Couple more pieces of news.
German police have seized ecstasy pills shaped like Donald Trump.
Yeah, ecstasy tablets shaped like the Donald. I think they also got a hold of a bunch of sleeping pills shaped like Ben Carson.
Bernie Sanders supporters are urging him to start a new party.
Oh. They come up with that idea after racking their brain for the most fun way to take their vote and flush it down the toilet. I digress. Because, look, here's the thing. The two-party system, and in the run-up to the election, we talked about this at length. The two-party system is irrevocably broken, and we need healthy competition within the world of politics, and there should be viable options in terms of other political parties. But if Bernie Sanders supporters really want him to start a new party and go for it, they're how old is Bernie now, Funkhauser? Old. Really, really old, right?
Upwards of centennial. No, probably in his... Yeah, he's old.
Yeah, so he's talking about running. He's talking about running in 2020. I don't know that he's got any other... A lot of people said he was too old for this election. A lot of people are going to say he's too old for 2020. But if he really wants to take an effective stab at really trying to be president in 2020, starting a new party, I don't know, man. I think that's a bad idea. And if he had time, if he had minutes left on the clock to where he could take the 15, 20 years, whatever it takes to build a new party and make a run of it, then maybe. And this is not talking as a Bernie supporter. This is talking to Bernie supporters. Maybe that would be the case. But unless we're going to have the world's first 100-year-old president, I don't see this new party thing for Bernie Sanders being a thing at all, which is too bad because, look, I think competition is healthy. I think the two-party system is broken. I think that Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders were, interestingly enough, the flip side of the same coin. People who put principles ahead of politics, just with vastly opposing viewpoints. They were going to be men that ran, like I said, on principle over weird partisan cozying up to folks. And it would be healthy, I think, for all of us if there were more options. That's what I think. Funkhauser, are we out of time?
No, man, we got a couple minutes.
Turning off the news bed because we got to talk about millennials. It's time for the thing.
There's your audible cue.
Yeah. Oh, very good. You really are a super producer. Very good, Funkhauser. Very good. So it is that time of year again where we talk about how young today's college freshmen are. And, of course, how old that makes all of us. The folks over at Beloit College, is it Beloit or Beloit? Like if you were in France, you'd say Beloit. But I think because we're here in America, we say Beloit because that's how it's spelled. Anyways, they just released their annual mindset list where they figure out some of the stuff that today's college freshmen have either never known or have always known. And for the class of 2021, who are mostly born in the year that Prince was going to party in, 1999, here's what they've got. That whole idea of partying like it's 1999 straight off the bat, they can't relate to that. Like they don't understand what it's like. They barely know any phones except smartphones. They don't know a rotary. They don't know a touch tone. They don't know. They've seen landlines. They've just probably had very limited experience of them. They've never used a floppy disk, Funkhauser. And you know what they've never purchased?
Either floppy disks, I'm sure. What haven't they purchased?
A compact disc. They've never bought a CD. And CDs still sell. You see them sometimes in places. They're not like these archaic pieces of defunct media like cassette tapes. People still buy CDs, but not if you are entering college in this day and age. You probably never bought a compact disc. They probably never known a world where they couldn't order anything they needed instantly from Amazon and get it the next day thanks to Amazon Prime. They've never known a world without Pokemon. There have always been blogs on the internet for them to read. The only known Napster they know is a failing brand, not the place to download free music. They only know Justin Timberlake as a solo artist. What's this NSYNC thing? Oh, really? That's interesting. Didn't know about that. And they only have experienced Bill Clinton as Hillary's husband, not as president.